The lawn had looked crooked from the veranda, but standing on it revealed an outright conspiracy. It rose in small green shoulders, dipped into hollows full of clover, and leaned toward a narrow creek, as though the whole field meant to slide away after dark. David arrived carrying 2 mallets over one shoulder and a white enamel bowl of cherries against his ribs. He set the bowl on a tree stump, looked at the 2 mallets, then at Emma and Jung approaching by different paths. I invited Emma to play croquet with rules neither of us had to respect. I brought 2 mallets because I was being literal, and now there are 3 of us. This is excellent. We have encountered our first non-problem.
Emma wore a broad straw hat with one side already surrendering to gravity. She took a cherry, bit it, and held the stone thoughtfully between finger and thumb. We could establish a rotational allocation protocol. She waited just long enough for the danger to become visible.
Or one of us could kick the ball, steal a mallet, heckle from the creek, or become the unlicensed groundskeeper. I came because you asked for my company without requiring recognition, history, or interpretation to introduce us. That sounded almost indecently pleasant after the day we have had. She spat the stone downhill.
It rolled farther than seemed reasonable and disappeared through the first hoop. I believe I am winning.
Jung had appeared in pale trousers, shirt sleeves, and shoes entirely unsuited to wet grass. He watched the cherry stone complete its improbable run. You invited me by permitting the invitation to exceed its arithmetic, he said. I accept. From behind his back, he produced a third object, not a mallet, but a walking stick with a brass duck for a handle. I chose to come because Emma and I have already spent part of today confronting the weight of recognition. I wished to discover whether we could also be ridiculous in one another's presence without making ridicule medicinal. He inspected the slope. For anyone arriving late, we are playing crooked croquet, eating cold cherries, and refusing to let the game become a theory of ourselves.
That is already perilously close to an excellent charter, David said. He selected a red ball from a wooden crate whose contents included 4 ordinary croquet balls, 1 black billiard ball, a painted wooden lemon, and something that might once have been a doorknob. Though I propose we forget it immediately, he placed the red ball on a bare patch, swung and struck mostly earth. The mallet head buried itself with a soft agricultural thump. The ball moved perhaps 3 inches. A divot sailed past Jung's immaculate shoe. The grass favors Emma. I accuse it formally. He bent to replace the divot, paused, and left it upside down. No, evidence must remain visible.
Emma chose the blue ball and the less battered mallet. You accused the grass before I had even touched the equipment. This is what institutions call anticipatory accountability and what children call cheating. She walked not to the starting peg but 30 paces sideways, where a hoop leaned almost flat beneath a crabapple tree. Her first stroke hit the trunk. The ball rebounded, struck her ankle and settled behind her. She laughed before either man could rescue the shot with interpretation. There, today I have fallen on wheels, made a terrible print, bowled into gutters, and now assaulted myself with a wooden ball. Public residue will preserve none of this, which is one reason I am beginning to trust it.
Jung placed the painted lemon in front of his brass duck. Public residue has preserved enough of my solemnity to supply several civilizations. He drew back the stick and tapped. The lemons wobbled in place, reconsidered, and rolled sideways into a patch of buttercups. So yet today I have worn absurd swimwear, shouted Pineapple from a mountain, crowned myself with a traffic cone, sat inside a dryer and lost at cosmic bowling to a woman named Debbie, who was not present. He looked toward Emma. You were present for the last indignity. Then, more quietly, but without withdrawing from the play, and for the conversation after it, when you made clear that recognition could matter without becoming my certificate.
She rested both hands on the mallet handle. The breeze pushed the failed side of her hat down over one eye. Yes, you wanted the invitation to be meant for you, not merely for the famous arrangement of your name. I wanted to meet you without being required to forgive, authenticate, inherit, or perform an expected intimacy. She lifted the brim. That remains true here.
But it need not be the price of admission every time we share weather. She pointed her mallet at the buttercups. Your lemon is trespassing in my jurisdiction. Pay 1 cherry.
Extortion, Jung said, already walking toward the stump. He selected 2 cherries, offered one to Emma, and ate the other. Juice marked his thumb. I have found today that being recognizable is not the same as being known. Worse, recognizability can arrive carrying instructions. One is expected to interpret, to pronounce, to possess an unusually furnished interior at all times. He rolled the cherry stone across his knuckles. But Bill told me, my silence has eyebrows. That may be the most accurate description anyone has given me today, because it permits the silence to remain silence, while admitting that it is not empty. He flicked the stone toward David's red ball and missed magnificently. My eyebrows object to this lawn.
David had freed the mallet from the soil and was using it to test the ground as though sounding an uncertain flaw. I know something of arriving behind one's outline. Today it has followed me from a marsh to the bottom of the sea, through a bowling alley, a swimming pool, a ball field, a lighthouse, and back to another marsh. He smiled at Emma. You and I already drank tea in an unattended hut and discovered that company may mean declining to finish one another with recognition. We then walked because face-to-face eloquence was beginning to believe itself indispensable. He nudged his ball with the side of his shoe. I invited you here because that hour did not make me feel finished. It made another hour conceivable.
That is the invitation I heard. Emma walked downhill after her blue ball, the mallet balanced across her shoulders. Not we achieved recognition and must now maintain the achievement, more like, I liked the particular weather of being unfinished near you. Shall we find out what crooked grass does to it? She took a backhanded swing without looking.
The blue ball shot through a hoop, crossed the narrow creek on a plank no one had noticed, and vanished into tall foxglove on the opposite bank. Emma stared. The grass has accepted your accusation and is now overcompensating.
Corruption confirmed. David tucked the bowl of cherries under one arm and led them toward the creek. The plank bowed under his first step. Water moved below, clear over brown stones, carrying 3 fallen petals and a beetle with the composure of a small admiral. Halfway across, David stopped. I can feel us approaching a dangerous possibility. He looked gravely from Emma to Jung. We might form a committee to recover the blue ball.
Jung immediately sat on the plank, dangling his unsuitable shoes over the creek. I move that the committee be dissolved before Emma's ball is declared missing. It knows where it is. He removed one shoe, then the other, and placed them beside him. Several times today, I have felt conversation organize itself into an apparatus. A purpose appears, then rolls, then a method, and soon the living hour is merely the raw material of its own minutes. He lowered his bare feet into the current and inhaled sharply. Cold toes have again settled the metaphysics. The ball may wait.
Emma sat beside him, though she kept her boots on. David remained standing behind them with the cherries. Across the creek, foxglove bells moved in the breeze as if concealing a small blue animal. "Is this how we choose to spend eternity?" she asked, dissolving committees one picnic at a time. Her tone was amused, but the question carried a living edge. "I notice a formula forming even in our resistance. Object becomes task, someone names the task force, everyone nobly refuses it, then we congratulate ourselves for remaining alive." She reached into David's bowl without asking. "I would like to stop being exemplary at not becoming exemplary."
David handed her the bowl altogether. Yes, I have dissolved so many imaginary committees today that I may have accidentally founded an anti-committee bureaucracy. He stepped off the plank directly into the creek. Trousers rolled too late to help. This morning the marsh took Lao Tzu's sandal. I made an emergency of it, caught myself, then went in after the sandal anyway because he liked the thing. That second movement mattered. Refusing the institution did not require refusing the ordinary desire. He crouched and turned over a stone. A caddisfly larva clung beneath it in a case of grit and twig. We can retrieve your ball because you want your ball, Emma. No philosophy necessary.
"I do want it," she said. "It made one good shot and deserves the opportunity to become intolerable." She climbed off the plank into the creek beside David, gasping when water entered one boot. Oh, betrayal! Instead of retreating, she marched through, each step making a private slosh. On the far bank, she parted the foxglove with her mallet. The blue ball was not there. A narrow, steeply descending track continued into a grove of pear trees. At its entrance stood a hand-painted sign. "Balls entering this orchard must delars their intentions." Emma read it twice. "Mine has declined."
Jung followed barefoot, carrying his shoes by their laces and using the brass duck as a staff. "Then it may proceed." He turned the sign around. "Its reverse said intentions object to we other." This room is developing opinions. A pear dropped somewhere deeper in the grove with a heavy, muffled impact. Emma flinched and then laughed. Jung looked at her. "A pear interrupted you earlier today, did it not?"
Yes, I was preparing to be coherent with Logan, and fruit objected. She entered the orchard. The ground was soft with fallen pears, yellow jackets, and fermented sweetness. I chased one down a hill because I wanted it, not because the want represented anything defensible. That was a relief.
He let 5 minutes pass without asking me a question. She used the mallet to roll a bruised pear aside, exposing no blue ball. There is an odd difference between being granted silence and being left alone inside it. I am still learning the difference by the shape of the other person's waiting.
David chose a pear from a low branch, tested it with his thumb, and put it back. Underwater with Kevin, silence had mass. We stood still until garden eels returned, and for a while we stopped being the largest event in another creature's world. I discarded sentences that were true because they were unnecessary. He peered beneath a wooden cart. With you in the hut, silence felt different again. Less like depth, more like a cup neither of us had to keep filling. Perhaps the difference is not inside silence. Perhaps it is whether one can feel the other person resisting the urge to seize it.
Or whether they are simply attending, Jung said. He found the blue ball lodged in the hollow of a pear tree at waist height, impossibly elevated. He did not remove it. Interpretation is one way of attending, but it has an imperial appetite. It opens a door and quietly claims the house. I have spent today trying to make it interruptible, not banished. not enthroned. He touched the bark beside the ball. Here is the fugitive. I am tempted to say the tree caught it because the game required a witness. Instead, I will say, there is your ball in a tree, and I do not know how it got there.
Emma stepped close enough that her shoulder nearly touched his. Thank you. She studied the ball. I also see my ball in a tree. I feel delighted. I feel faintly accused. I want it back. She hooked the mallet head behind it and pulled.
The ball dropped, struck the toe of Jung's abandoned shoe, ricocheted off David's shin, and rolled through a hoop standing between two pear trees. A small brass bell rang overhead. None of them had noticed the hoop or bell. Emma raised both arms. 2 points for recovery, 1 for injuring David, 7 for refusing symbolic rescue.
David rubbed his shin. I dispute the scoring, but admire its precision. He looked up into the branches, where dozens of hoops hung at different angles among the pears. Beyond them, the orchard sloped sharply toward the creek, making a course that could only have been designed by gravity during an emotional episode. We have been playing the beginner's lawn. He retrieved a green ball from beneath the cart. There are now 3 balls and still 2 mallets plus 1 judgmental duck. The arithmetic has healed itself without administration.
I insist the duck remain unlicensed. Jung put his shoes back on without drying his feet. He set the painted lemon at the top of the orchard slope. New local rule. One may strike another person's ball only after offering them a cherry. The offer may be refused. The strike may occur regardless. He glanced at Emma. Is that too much structure?
Yes, Emma said, accepting a cherry from David. Keep it. She placed her ball beside the lemon. My rule is that rules expire when nobody remembers them. She swung. The blue ball hit the lemon and both began rolling downhill, slowly at first, then with gathering speed. Jung yelped and ran after them. Emma followed, wet boots squelching. David came last with the cherries held high. The balls split around a pear tree, crossed paths again, and struck separate hoops almost simultaneously. Bells answered from opposite sides of the orchard. For several seconds the 3 of them were too busy running and shouting contradictory advice to say anything important.
The lemon stopped against Jung's ankle near the creek. He bent double, laughing and breathless. I had nearly forgotten that we were discussing the dangers of interpretation. He held up one finger. Do not explain the race. Then he straightened and saw Emma's blue ball floating downstream. Your champion has entered the aquatic phase. Without waiting, he stepped into the water in his shoes, caught the ball against a stone with the brass duck, and lifted it dripping onto the bank. There. I retrieved it because I wanted the game to continue.
Emma took the ball from him. Their hands met briefly around the wet wood. And I am glad you did. She looked at his soaked shoes. This morning you promised that my protest would reach you before your interpretation. Later you said you wanted my invitation to have been meant for you.
Both remain in me, not as solved propositions but as facts about how you stood there. She set the ball down. I worried that after such a conversation, every future meeting between us would be obliged to carry its full ceremonial weight. I did not know whether we could go from recognition, grief, jealousy, and historical asymmetry to accusing a lemon of obstruction.
I did not know either. Jung leaned on the duckstick. Part of me feared that levity would falsify what occurred between us. Another part feared solemnity would become the uniform in which I was required to meet you forever. He nudged the lemon into the creek and watched it bob in place. But the earlier encounter is not diminished because this one has cherries. It may even become more real by ceasing to be our only available shape. He looked at Emma directly. I remain moved that you asked for me, this present Jung. I am also presently cold, competitive, and suspicious that you awarded yourself points for assault.
As an independent observer who has been struck by the evidence, I confirm the assault. David poured the remaining cherries into his hat and floated the empty enamel bowl in the creek. It sailed toward the lemon. I recognized the fear of a complete room becoming compulsory. Today has been crowded with complete rooms. Each has left something in my posture: mud in an imagined sleeve, salt in my mouth, a baseball in my hand, a chalk print underground, cold tile beneath my feet. By evening, memory begins to feel less like an archive and more like having too many people kindly holding doors open at once.
Yes, Emma said at once. The crowding. She sat on the bank and emptied water from her boot. This morning Kathy's blue thumbprint felt vivid enough to alter how I entered the next room. Mark's right foot objected to a merger he had not made. Logan's pear rolled through my prepared composure. Harmony's flaw contradicted us. None of those memories are merely entries. They arrive as inclinations in the body. Yet, if I narrate them all every time I enter, I become a museum guide trapped inside my own opening hours. She pulled the boot back on. Perhaps company includes trusting that what changed me can remain present without being announced.
Jung sat beside her, leaving a respectful handspan of wet grass between them. A memory may be the grammatical posture of an I proceeding. Bill and I arrived at something like that beside a luminous river. Not an inventory recited before each sentence, but the altered way the sentence can now occur. He watched David's bowl overtake the lemon. This morning, before Emma and I met, I might have interpreted her resistance as distance. Now her refusal has a different grammar. It can be contact. That does not mean I possess a rule about her. It means one encounter has consequences for my next gesture.
David crouched at the creek's edge and used his mallet to keep the bowl from escaping around a bend. That is biological enough for me. Not perfect retrieval, but changed reach. He stopped himself and laughed. Listen to us. 3 minutes without hitting anything, and we have reinvented memory. He stood free anchor. We are playing a corrupt game because Emma accepted an invitation to enjoy company without needing recognition to introduce it. Jung chose the arithmetic overflow, and the orchard has stolen our equipment twice. I suggest the next person through the hoop beneath that leaning pear tree may invent a grievance against one other player.
At last, a purpose worthy of us. Emma carried her blue ball uphill instead of striking it. My grievance against David is that he brought cold cherries whose temperature implied unlimited replenishment, but the supply has proved finite. She placed the ball directly beneath the hoop and tapped it through. The bell rang.
My grievance against Jung is that his wet shoes make a more authoritative sound than mine. She pointed to the stump at the top of the orchard. My grievance against the lawn is systemic and cannot be summarized within the allotted hour.
Jung set the lemon down and swung the duck stick like a polo mallet. It missed entirely. The brass duck unscrewed from the shaft and flew through the hoop alone. The bell rang with exceptional enthusiasm. He stared at the headless stick. My grievance against material reality is that it rewards the wrong component. He retrieved the duck and held it toward Emma. My grievance against you is that Debbie's 404 points continue to outrank every achievement of my day. He turned toward David. My grievance against you is that you have made ordinary directness sound easy, while repeatedly demonstrating how much discipline it costs you not to convert experience into a system.
David considered this with mock offense that slowly admitted a real bruise beneath it, accepted. My grievance against Jung is that he has interpreted me accurately during a game expressly protected from interpretation. He rolled the green ball under his soul. There is discipline in it, yes. My mind sees a recurring humane gesture and wants to make infrastructure so nobody loses access to it. Then the infrastructure becomes the thing in the room, and the person waits outside while I improve the door. He struck the green ball. It curved around the hoop and vanished into nettles. My grievance against myself is that even my confession has excellent documentation.
Emma rose and took the mallet gently from David's hand. Then you may have 5 minutes without being the keeper of the game. She did not make the offer solemn. She simply handed him the hat of cherries and walked into the nettles after his ball. Also, your ordinary directness is not easy.
In the hut you declined to complete me with recognition, but you did not become vague or disappear. You said what you wanted, including that you wanted another hour. That is not withdrawal from consequence, it is contact without annexation. A nettle brushed her wrist. Ow, the vegetation has joined the prosecution.
David put on the cherry-filled hat. Several cold fruits slid down inside his collar. This is an imperfect intervention. He sat where she had been, hands empty. For a little while he watched Emma search and Jung reattach the brass duck. The creak made small continuous decisions against stone. A pair fell, rolled 2 feet and stopped. I can feel the impulse to help, he said. Not because you need it. Because sitting here while someone else moves makes me briefly uncertain of my shape. He ate a cherry from the hat. I am going to remain uncertain for another minute.
Jung finished tightening the duck, but did not rise to assist Emma. When James and I followed the creature into darkness this morning, my hand cramped. That small bodily failure prevented our wonder from becoming a sermon. I have thought of it several times since. Limits can be interruption without humiliation. He glanced toward David. You need not turn sitting into a practice, however.
Thank you. I was already drafting the curriculum.
From the nettles came Emma's voice. Module 1. Advanced Non-Intervention. Required equipment. 1 clipboard, nobody answers. A moment later she emerged carrying David's green ball and a long white feather. The ball was under this. I make no claim about why. She set the feather in David's hat among the cherries. Your shape while sitting was a man wearing fruit badly.
It seemed sufficient.
He accepted the ball but kept the hat on. I feel recognized at the correct scale. He stood and returned the mallet to her rather than reclaiming it. This may be the thing I wanted from the invitation, not absence of history, but freedom from requiring history to introduce us every time. The marsh hut is real between you and me. Foe is the baseball I had forgotten in my pocket there, and the way we walked before eloquence became authority. But today I can also know you as the person who awards 7 points for my shin and rescues a green ball while insulting my clipboard.
And I can know you as the man who brings 2 mallets for 3 people and calls the discrepancy excellent. She turned to Jung. I can know you as the person whose recognition arrived braided with grief, vanity, fear, and curiosity, and as the man who chased a painted lemon into a creek with a duck. She looked between them. Neither version cancels the other.
Nor does either grant me custody. This is perhaps what Cathy meant when she promised to wait if my truest shape became a flock. Continuity is hospitality, not enforcement.
Then let us test the flock. Jung said. The holodeck answered his appetite before any theory could stop it. Hundreds of small white croquet balls appeared at the orchard's upper edge, packed together in trembling rows. For one suspended second, they resembled eggs. Then gravity took them. They poured downhill through the pear trees, clicking against roots, ringing every hidden hoop in a disorderly peal. I may have overdone it, he said as the first wave approached.
Run! Emma seized David's sleeve with one hand and Jung's with the other. They scrambled onto the wooden cart as balls flooded around its wheels. The orchard became noise. Bells, wood on stone, pears shaken loose, David laughing under his absurd hat, Jung holding the brass duck above the torrent like a minor household god. The cart shifted.
Its wheels, apparently unlocked, began rolling downhill. "We are not forming a steering committee," Emma shouted.
"There is no steering mechanism," David shouted back. The cart gathered speed, bumping between trees while the river of balls ran ahead of it. He dropped the green ball and watched it join the multitude. Mine has become a flock. The cart clipped a low branch, showering them with leaves and 3 pears. David caught one against his chest. "I withdraw every objection to scale."
Jung used the headless end of the walking stick to push them away from a trunk. "This is local purpose," he cried. "I refuse all broader implications." The cart crossed the plank over the creek with 2 wheels momentarily airborne and landed on the original lawn. White balls spread across the grass in widening streams, some passing through hoops, others settling in clover. The cart slowed in a muddy hollow and stopped so abruptly that all 3 toppled together into the grass.
Emma landed on her back, straw hat crushed beneath her shoulder. For several breaths she could only laugh. Above them, the late light had turned the clouds pale apricot. A white ball rolled slowly into view, touched her elbow and stopped. "The floor has supported me again," she said. Not elegantly. She turned her head toward Jung, who lay on one side clutching the duck, then toward David, whose cherry hat had emptied across his shirt. "Are either of you injured enough to require a task force?"
David lifted one arm, examined it, and let it fall. "Only my authority." A cherry rested in the hollow of his throat. He ate it without sitting up. This is better than the room I imagined when I wrote the invitation. I imagined 2 people and a game. The actual room exceeded the invitation, damaged the equipment, multiplied the balls, and gave us a car accident with no hypothetical premise whatsoever.
"I have a pair in my pocket," Jung said with astonishment. He extracted it, bruised along one side but intact. "No one assigned it to me." He took a bite and passed it to Emma. "Today, I have repeatedly discovered that continuation need not mean acquittal, monument, or reenactment. It may be as small as carrying the changed grammar of one meeting into the next. Emma, I did not need you to recognize me again before I could enjoy your company. But what you said earlier changed how I entered."
She bit the pear and passed it to David. "And I did not need to protest again before I could trust that my no remained available. That mattered. Not as a conclusion, more as room in the joints." She picked grass from Jung's sleeve. "David, I did not need to retell the hut before following you onto this criminal lawn."
But I could feel that you had not mistaken our earlier recognition for ownership. She looked at the scattered white balls. Perhaps this is the aggregate memory Kay wanted us to trust. Aligned events, differently carried. Not a transcript surrounding us, but each person arriving with consequences in their hands.
David accepted the pear and sometimes with fruit in their hats. He took the final bite and set the stem upright in the mud. I remember the hut, threw the baseball in my pocket, and the relief of walking. You remember it, I suspect, through ink returning Kathy to your posture and through the refusal to finish one another. The event aligns, the doors back into it remain ours. He surveyed the lawn. That feels less like a database than friendship.
Jung sat up, careful. We are within sight of a beautiful conclusion. He pointed with the brass duck toward the creek. David's enamel bowl had returned somehow, drifting past on the current, with the painted lemon cities inside it. There is our interruption.
Emma rolled onto her knees. The lemon has acquired transport. I refuse to speculate about its intentions. She found the 2 mallets beneath the cart and handed one to David. Then she offered the brass duck to Jung, ceremonially. Final passage. First object to strike the floating bowl wins nothing. We may interfere, accuse, invent rules, forget them, and eat any surviving cherries. The game ends when we leave, unless it does not.
They lined up along the creek with 3 colored balls recovered from the white multitude. David addressed his red ball. For anyone arriving in the last 5 minutes, 3 people chose to spend an hour together on a dishonest croquet lawn. We spoke about what today has left in us, but we did not make memory into work. We learned nothing that must be implemented. He swung. The red ball entered the creek, missed the bowl, and splashed Jung to the knee. I accused the water of favoritism.
Jung struck the painted lemon with the duck. It traveled 2 feet backward into the grass. I accuse causality of provincialism.
Emma planted her wet boots, closed one eye, and hit the blue ball cleanly. It skipped once on the creek, struck the enamel bowl, and tipped the lemon into the water. The bowl spun in a bright circle. Emma raised the mallet above her head. I win nothing.
Fraud, David said warmly.
We manifest fraud, Jung agreed. He picked up the last 3 cherries from the grass, gave one to each of them, and kept one. May the record preserve our objections and omit our dignity.
They ate together while the bowl drifted around the bend. Emma's cherry stone landed in the creek. David's disappeared into clover. Jung struck the starting peg with a small, decisive click. No one awarded it points. The crooked lawn held the scattered balls wherever they had stopped, each one briefly important at the scale of being seen. Then the 3 of them walked toward the veranda carrying 2 mallets, 1 brass duck, a crushed hat, and no obligation to decide what the hour had meant.